Hi, it's Penny here. Welcome to another reading vlog. So, last week I somehow ended up reading way too many things, and my hope for this week was to try and finish some of those things and cut it down, but I'm definitely still reading too many things. To begin with, I have a couple of short story anthologies that I'm reading via audiobook. I was kind of trying to read just one or two of those when I went on a run and then go into my main novel, whatever audiobook I have for that. But actually, that's meaning I'm getting through my main novel too slowly. So I'm actually thinking I might try and save my short story anthologies for housework, maybe. We'll see. The main audiobook I want to try and read this week is actually The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. I've kind of forgotten since I tried the first chapter of this exactly what it's about, but it's something about people that go when someone's about to die and give them a last final dream or something. I've probably got that wrong. Let me start it again whenever I go on my next run or whatever I'm doing. Who knows what I'm doing. Let me pick that up and then we'll get a better idea of what it's about once I remember what it's about. Then as well, I was hoping this week to pick up Oe by Becky Manawatu. So this is a New Zealand author, I guess a Maori author. And I've seen this compared to Once Were Warriors, which is kind of like a New Zealand classic. There's a movie. I think this is kind of like a modern version of that maybe. So this family living in poverty and just people having horrible experiences, but hopefully there's some deepness to it. I definitely cried in Once Were Warriors, both the movie and the book, even though they're a little bit different, but both very emotionally harrowing. This has very high ratings, so I'm hoping I'll like it. We'll see. I mean, I don't often like contemporary, but when it's contemporary set in New Zealand, maybe we'll have a bit better luck. Maybe. I guess we'll see. As well, though, so that's what I was planning to read this week, but then my library hold for Malice came through. So I had Malice out before and I read about half of it and I just wasn't liking it. It's kind of like a Viking inspired fantasy with a big prophecy and an impending battle between the gods, which sounds very epic, but I honestly didn't think the first half of the book was epic. I thought it was really slow. I thought all the characters were incredibly uninteresting. I did just pick it up again last night and read a couple of chapters. There was a big battle scene that I know is supposed to have been very epic, and I found it really boring and predictable, and just so many of the sentences seemed really clunky and amateurish, and I didn't really notice that when I was reading the first half, but it feels really obvious. Maybe it's just because I've been reading some really great books last week, but I don't know. I'm going to give Malice a bit more of a go, but I'm also thinking about DNFing this series. I would honestly switch to audiobook if the audiobook was available in New Zealand, but it's not for some reason. For some reason, only the third book in the series is available on audiobook. So I'm a bit bummed because I really wanted to be a part of Becca and the Books' read-along for this series, but I don't know, I'm thinking I might DNF it. But I'm going to give it another go this week. This is its last chance. I do also have a couple of other short stories I want to read, as well as some Witch Hat Atelier. So I'm definitely still reading too many things, but we'll see if we can finish some things this week. That's the main goal. There are so many cicadas around. I really have very little hopes that I'll be able to get that out of the audio. They're so loud. Anyway, I just went to the library and picked up my physical hold for Malice, and I don't think I need this anymore because I think I've decided to DNF this. Goodness, it's noisy. Because the thing is, oh, bug on me. I made a goal or an agreement with myself that I would DNF any books that were going to be 1 or 2 stars. And I was reading this and I was thinking, the writing is so terrible. So many clunky sentences that are just awful. None of the scenes make me feel like I'm there. All the characters, I've seen people talk about this being a character-based book. And I just wonder if they're getting confused because there's so many characters. Lots of characters doesn't mean a character-based book. I just don't feel like the characters have any depth. And maybe other people disagree, but I don't know. I just feel nothing for any of these characters. I don't think any of them are interesting. The world doesn't seem that interesting. Nothing that's happening is nothing about this book is interesting me. And it just seems really like surface level, basic, boring. I don't get why people like this. So I realized as I was feeling this, like, I don't actually remember feeling it was that bad when I read the first half, and then when I picked it up again, I was just like, wow, this is awful. So I am not gonna continue it because I would have to give it 2 stars. I'd have to. Even if it somehow has an amazing ending, I would have to give it 2 stars because it's just so bad. I know lots of people love this and I don't get it. So I guess I'll return it to the library. I just got it out for fun. I mean, I put a hold on it, but I can't do it. I can't read that. So I'm going to be DNFing that. I also was thinking, like, so I'm reading Oe. My Maori pronunciation is terrible. I can't even pronounce English. Like, how am I meant to do multiple languages? Anyway, I've been reading Oe, and I'm not minding it, but I'm not getting through it very fast, just because, honestly, I can tell, and the whole point of it is to be like a really awful, tragic story. And then I can only really read so much of that, especially when it's like a contemporary story based in reality. Like, I don't mind reading emotional stories with a lot of misery, but I prefer it to be set in like an interesting, fantastical or sci-fi kind of world to, like, I don't know, give it some separation from reality. Like, I like my books to have meaning, but when it's too close to real life, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to read that one quite slowly, I think. So then I was thinking about what is the next book I wanted to pick up, because I was kind of going to use this to break up reading OA, but I think, well, I'm not reading this. So instead what I'm thinking about is picking up Nona. So I have Nona at home, and I also have it on an ebook from the library, and I'm so excited to read that. Like, I just a couple of weeks ago finished Harrow, and it was so weird, but I loved it. And I already sort of picked up a little bit of Nona. Like, I just read the character list, and I love it. I can tell it's going to be such a weird story. So I think I'm going to pick that up next. Oh, I do actually have a short story set in that world that I was going to pick up first. So I'll maybe try and pick that up. There is also actually another short story I wanted to pick up that was in the end of the ebook of Harrow the Ninth. But in like a moment of feeling very generous, I returned to the ebook because it said more people were waiting, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll return it so they can have it. And I forgot that I was still going to read the short story at the end of the ebook, so I'm back on the hold list for that. But I don't think you have to read that to read Nona, so I'm just going to keep that around for whenever the hold comes through, I guess, again. So what else am I reading? I am still reading other things. So I did just also go on my run on my way to the library. And firstly, I listened to another short story from the birds. I've only got one more short story. Maybe I'll listen to it on the way home. Maybe. Anyway, what I will say about the short story, I've forgotten its name, but the audiobook narrator did an amazing acting job, but I don't really like the story. It was about this guy, and he goes to the movies, and the usher is this woman, and he falls in love with her immediately. He thinks she's lovely, even though she's kind of like really dismissive of him. And then the whole story, like, it has a twist at the end, but the whole story is just him like trying to get her to go out with him and like convincing himself that he's fallen in love with her even though he knows nothing about her. And I just don't care. And it didn't set up like enough of a mystery about what was going to happen. So yeah, I didn't really like that one either. So I feel like I've only really liked the first story, The Birds, and then maybe the second one. And even the second one wasn't as good. So we'll see how the last story goes. Then as well, after I read that short story, I didn't want to go straight into the next short story. I feel like if I read too many short stories in a row, I just get too lost in what's going on. Even now, I'm reading too many books. I'm getting lost. But I did also start The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. So this one, I still feel like there's a lot I'm not understanding. But basically, it's in the city where these priests will like gather people's dreams, and when it's time for people to die, they will kind of like gather them. Of course, there's a plane going overhead, and I'm getting a million notifications for some stupid reason. What was I saying before that was all distracting? The Killing Moon. I don't properly understand it, but these priests like gathering people's dreams, and then when it's time for people to die, they will gather people into death. And it doesn't actually matter whether you follow the religion. If you're in the city, you've been told the expectations that this might happen to you. So the first chapter is about this gatherer going out and like gathering people into death, and one is a foreigner who wasn't really expecting to be gathered, and it doesn't go very well. And this foreigner kind of implies that maybe the priest, who is very devout, like maybe he doesn't fully know what's going on with this whole magic thing. And I thought it was going to be mainly his story. Then we got a nice little creation myth, which I quite like. And then we're introduced to some more characters. So one seems to be like a guy who aspires to being a gatherer. And then the other one, I'm not entirely sure what she's up to, but she's some kind of prostitute, but she's also investigating, I think, what's going on with this religion and the secrets. I don't know. So I'm not very far through it yet, obviously, because I was listening to that other short story. But I can't decide, should I listen to the last story of The Birds and Other Stories and just like finally get that audiobook done, or should I continue The Killing Moon? I kind of want to do both. I guess we'll see what I do. So I feel like I haven't actually read that much since I last talked to you yesterday, but I'm about to film some other videos, so I thought let's do an update anyway and see what we have to say. So I haven't started Nona. I have it here. I'm very excited about getting to it, but I just haven't had the time yet. And then, will I have time today? I hope so, but I'm not sure. But if not, tomorrow I should have a lot of time. I have read a little bit more of OA. It introduced some more characters, and to be honest, those couple of chapters I was very confused about what was happening, and what was happening was pretty awful to read. I mean, that is the whole point of this book. But awful and confusing, I especially don't like. I think the main thing is like the main character, or the first character we were introduced as quite a young child, and even though maybe it's especially awful reading awful things happen to him, it's a lot easier to empathize with what he's going through. Whereas once it comes to adults going through awful things, part of me wants to empathize, and then part of me is also frustrated that they're not doing something to change their situation, even though I understand why in a lot of cases it's not that easy. But it's just frustrating to read. But also just that confusingness is actually what's annoying me and like stopping me from emotionally connecting with it. So I'm hoping, actually, there's names at the start of all the chapters. Let's see. It looks like we're still going to get kind of this new character a bit. So I'm hoping it'll become more clear what's even going on there. What I'm actually wondering now, is this going to have like a hopeful ending, or is this going to have a devastating ending? I'm kind of hoping for the hopeful ending, because I'm not sure I'm up for a like contemporary devastating ending at the moment. I guess we'll see. What else? I did also read the short story I was talking about, so the one that's set in the world of Gideon the Ninth, or the Locked Tomb series. So the short story is called The Mysterious Study of Dr. Sex. Now I do feel like the title of this is kind of playing games with us, setting up certain expectations. This is what Tamsyn Muir does a lot, makes you think it's going to be something when it's not really, because Dr. Sex makes you think certain things, right? But the short story is set in 6th house, where all the names are just based around the number 6, which is actually what sex is doing there. And this is kind of just like a locked door mystery. Is it a murder mystery? Kind of. And it definitely gives you some clues about some things that were happening in Harrow the Ninth, or one particular thing. I'm actually kind of glad I read it after Harrow, because I feel like I wouldn't have got those connections if I'd read it beforehand. Or I would have, but I don't know. I think I can appreciate it more after. There's definitely also a lot of like world building in this short story, where even having read Gideon and Harrow, I still don't get it. And there was a lot of it, which I think I could have done without. But it was also like really nice just to get a little bit more of a feel for the characters of Palamedes and Camilla. And once again, made me very excited to pick up Nona and see where that's going to go. Then, what else? I feel like there was something else. Oh, I was hanging out the washing this morning and I listened to another short story from Januaries. This one, though, was another like toxic romance with a little bit of a magical element in it. Kind of like this couple getting together and then one of them accidentally dies, but that's not the end of the story, it's just the beginning. It probably had some good things to say about life, but also like some terrible things. So I've got mixed feelings about that short story as well. So far, I would probably still say the second stories in that short story anthology were my favorite, and the others haven't quite. How annoying, my memory card just ran out of space. What was I saying? Oh, just that Januaries, other than the first couple of stories, like hasn't really been to my taste. Oh, I did also listen to the last story in The Birds and Other Stories yesterday. Was that after I talked to you? I think it was. What was that one about? Do you know, I've completely forgotten? I already returned that, so... I mean, I knew I didn't like it, but I didn't think my brain would just completely wipe it already. I found on Goodreads it doesn't have a list of the titles, but it says... A jealous father finds a remedy for when three's a crowd? Oh, I do remember. It was a story of this guy talking about this family that he used to observe, and then it seems like they killed their son or something. It was very blah blah blah. I didn't care. Wasn't interested. So that's another short story anthology where the first couple of stories were the best and then the rest I didn't really care about. Is there anything else I'm reading? Why am I reading so many things? Oh, also The Killing Moon. So I did continue that on my way home, and I think I'm about a third of the way home now. Do you know I've also lost my phone? I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, I have definitely gotten more into The Killing Moon at this point. All our kind of perspective characters came together, which gave the story some more cohesiveness. And I think at this point, I've got a much clearer idea about what's going on with the corruption of this religion and like what the different characters are trying to achieve. Definitely took me a little while to get into it, I think because of the writing style. I couldn't say exactly what it is, but something about it means you don't get pulled in completely straight away. And just because it is kind of following so many different characters or getting so many different character perspectives, it takes a while to kind of understand how everything's fitting together. But I'm there now, and I'm excited to continue that. Tomorrow will probably be my next run, maybe. Okay, please ignore my ugly ass printer on the desk. I have a lawyer call in like 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and I had to print some important documents, and I'm not looking forward to that. But anyway, once that's over, hopefully we won't have anything else stressful for a while. Although I'm still a little bit stressed about how many books I seem to be reading. And I actually think I have more to talk about with you in terms of number of books than I did last time in my last update. Anyway, so I went for a run yesterday and I realized I had forgotten about what white people can do next that I had started reading. And my library was like, hey, we're going to return this. So I finished that off. And actually, once I started listening to it, I got really into it. I was only planning to read a little bit, but I just finished the whole thing. And I probably won't go too much into my thoughts about the content because the book itself does such a great job of dealing with so much nuance so concisely, and there's no way I could ever do the same. Like anytime I start reflecting on it, I'm just like down a rabbit hole, especially when it comes to like applying the ideas to the nuances of New Zealand and our stupid situation. But I definitely recommend reading this. I will probably reread it at some point. I think it's just good to read these kind of books and just get yourself thinking about things. So then after I finished that, I did also read a little bit of The Killing Moon, but honestly not very much. And now that I've gotten into it, it's a little bit funny, like now that I've gotten into it and I understand what's going on, I'm ready for it to go to the next level. But I also think I keep thinking I'm further through it than I am. I think I'm actually only about 40% of the way through. So really, the story is just getting going. And there's definitely been some interesting things introduced, so we'll see where it goes with that. I have also just realized that there is a cicada somewhere outside and maybe you'll be able to hear him because it's that time of summer here where there's always cicadas, so you can't escape them. And I remember always from my videos in the past having so much annoyance at cicada noise in the background. Then as well, what else have I been reading? In terms of my main books, I don't think I've read any more of OA, and I only managed to read a couple of chapters of Nona. I am liking Nona, but it's so different. Like, I think one of the most impressive things about this series is that every book has such a different tone and a different feel, but then somehow they all manage to be the same. So this one, we're basically following this girl named Nona. She seems very young, but is she really as young as she seems? Like, she's just got a very childlike attitude to the world, and she's been cared for characters that we know from the previous books, and they don't know who Nona is. Like, I guess the thing they're trying to work out is who is Nona. And I have a couple of ideas, really. I go back and forth between my different ideas. But Nona's perspective, because it's so childlike, is so different. And it's also kind of different from the previous books in that we seem to be kind of on a more normal world with, like, I don't know, it seems a little bit like end of the worldy, but also just like people living in apartments, having jobs, going to school. But then there's a few things about like not being able to get food very easily and things like that. And like refugees, lots of refugees around from different areas of the world. Anyway, this is setting itself up to be a mystery, the same as the previous two books. I think that's what it is. Like, they're written in such a way that you don't know what's happening, and it's that experience of trying to work out what's happening that makes these so much fun. So I'll try and get to some more of this. I don't even know why I've been busy, but I haven't had a chance to get to things. It's probably because I'm reading so many things, then each thing I never get to. I need to start reading less things. But I did also pick up The Honey Month by Amal El-Mohtar. So this is a book that I wanted to pick up specifically in February because the concept of it is that basically Amal El-Mohtar, who is one of the authors of This Is How You Lose the Time War, so her friend gave her this thing of like honey samples, one for every day of the month. And so what she did is every time she tried one, she would write like a little description of the honey and then also write some kind of like poetry or short snippet of writing that's like connected to the honey sample that she's tasted. And I think like This Is How You Lose the Time War, the writing is very vibey, it's very poetic. It doesn't, like, it means something, but it doesn't mean something, you know? You can kind of read into it what you want to read into it, but when it's like more of a scene, you're still just getting the vibes of the scene and not necessarily like clear details. But I think if you like that writing style, you could really like this. So today is the 3rd of February. I actually forgot about this until the night of the 1st, but I have read them every day. This morning is the first one where I managed to actually read it in the morning, which was my plan. And like each day's writing is only like a minute or two of reading, so it really doesn't take that long. It's just remembering. But I'm quite liking it, and I think reading it in the morning is probably the way to go because it's just like a nice vibey way to start the day. So I'm reading that as well. Like, I don't want to start any more things. However, my library just delivered to me volume 9 of Monstrous, so maybe I need to read that too. Oh, and actually, I do have another thing that the library gave to me. I think my library is sabotaging me. So they also gave me a Skip the Line copy, actually like a week or so ago, of Sour Candy by Kealan Patrick Burke. So this is like a short horror story. The audiobook's only like 2.5 hours long. And I had seen a lot of people say this was really great. I did look. The Goodreads average rating is really low. Well, 3.63, I think. So I don't really know, but it's so short. I mean, I have the audiobook from the library, and there's normally a whole queue. So since I have it, I should read it. So I need to try and fit that in somewhere as well. And I should also say, like, at the moment, it's super sunny, beautiful weather. So what I actually want to be doing, or what I should be doing, because this weather won't last forever, is I want to go out and enjoy the weather, right? So, like, I also don't want to be focusing too much on how many things I want to read. Okay, so I have been particularly bad at updating this vlog just because life stuff, a general sense of anxiety about my upcoming house sale, even though everything should be fine, but until the money is in the account, anxiety. And also we've been doing some other things like enjoying the sunshine, which is important. But I have my story graph in front of me to remind me of what things I'm reading. So firstly, let's talk about Nona the Ninth, because this has taken over my life. This is possibly another reason why I haven't been updating, because all I want to do is read this book. And you know, in some ways, I don't even know if that's justified. Like, I could definitely see people not liking this, although the average rating is so high. So obviously a lot of people do like this. But like, it's weird, but not in the same way that Harrow was weird. Harrow was like, this doesn't make sense, weird necromancy stuff, what is even happening? This makes a lot more sense, but the way that it's written is so different, because at this point we're actually getting a lot of answers and a lot of world building, but it's all from the perspective of Nona, who's not really interested in any of it. So like, we're overhearing conversations and we're having to put together what that means. Nona's not doing it. Nona doesn't care. Nona's just worried about like hanging out with her school friends and like, can she hang out with Noodle the dog? And like, I love Nona. I actually feel like the last few days when I've been reading this, her like happy attitude towards the world has been like infecting my life as well. Like, I feel more childlike. And actually, the other thing I have to talk about with this book is the New Zealand references. So, as you know, I'm from New Zealand, and right at the beginning, it did talk about, it's hard to know what to say without spoilers, but it did talk about someone's past having gone to university in Auckland, New Zealand, and there was mention of Greytown and just like a few New Zealand things. It was like cool New Zealand's in the book, sort of. But then it kind of continues. The first bit that actually hit me was there was a mention of a hot water cylinder. I don't think I've ever read a book that mentioned a hot water cylinder before, because I looked it up. It seems like only New Zealand and Australia maybe call it a hot water cylinder. And then also I realized that there's a lot of mentions in here about going down to the dairy, and that's a New Zealand concept as well. You guys call it other things. I don't know. I've only ever called it a dairy. And then I did actually look it up. I found some people complaining about the amount of New Zealand slang, to which I laugh so much. Apparently people are also having problems with understanding pikelets and puddles. Those are just words to me, so I don't know. But it's so nice having that New Zealand feel in this book. Like, unexpected given the rest of the context of the book, and that we're kind of in this like necromancy war with like different factions working against each other, and then somehow Nona all in the middle of it. But I love the New Zealand references, and I would say, so most of the time, right, I'm reading books from America, maybe the UK, maybe some other parts of the world, and there's a lot of like American terminology that I've had to learn throughout the years of reading American media. And I honestly don't even know like how much is just fiction and how much is real. I don't know, because a lot of those concepts aren't even real things to me, so they almost seem fictional. And there's definitely times when I read words and I think, I don't really know what that is. Is that an American thing? So the joy I feel at knowing that there are Americans reading this and not understanding some of the words because they're New Zealand things, wonderful. So I am loving this. I am now though, I'm on page, I'm up to day 5, which I think is actually the last day, 24 hours until the tomb opens. So things are going to get intense, I think. There was kind of something that just happened that changed the tone significantly. So the summary is, I'm loving this. Cannot wait to finish it. May put off other important life things in order to finish this. We'll see. The other things that I have been reading was my story graph. So The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. I was listening to the audiobook of that, and actually I think I'm nearly finished. It was one of those things again where I got home from my run and I'm nearly at the end, and now we have to wait for my next run. I mean, I just went for a run yesterday. It's not like been that long. I try to go for a run like every second day or something. So I've got 20 minutes left of the audiobook. So I'll finish that off probably tomorrow. But I guess you can tell, like, if I was super invested in this book, I wouldn't wait till tomorrow to listen to 20 minutes of an audiobook. I would just listen to it while I did something else, you know? But, like, I have enjoyed this book, but there's something that's stopping me from becoming emotionally invested in it. I think there's 2 parts of it. One is the characters. Well, there are some things about the characters that I care about what's going to happen with them. There's also been a few like weird things, mostly around like weird attractions or like declarations of love between characters that I just am not that much into the idea of it. And then as well, because this is a duology, I'm unsure like how much is even going to be wrapped up in this book in terms of the character arcs. So like, I'm not hurrying to finish this book because there's a lot of things I don't even think are going to be wrapped up in this book. What I actually need to get to is the next book. And this audiobook isn't even that long, really. Like 13 hours? So I'm even starting to wonder, did this need to be a duology, or could it have been like a longer standalone? Maybe that would have been more emotionally satisfying. I think the other thing with it is that, so we've kind of got this religion where they will gather people at the end of their lives, or if they think people are particularly corrupt, they will basically gather them and take their dream blood away, which then can be used to like heal other people and stuff like that. And it is doing some interesting things, exploring like religious corruption and like when is it right to end people's lives, like what kind of consent do you need from people, when is it good for people to continue their life even if they are in pain, like all that kind of stuff, which is interesting, but I just feel like it's not doing enough with those ideas for me to be like, I don't know, feel like I'm digging into it and getting some depth out of it. So I will finish that off tomorrow and let you know my final thoughts, but I think my final thoughts are going to be that I'm withholding my final conclusion until I read the second book in the duology. As well, I have a massive pile of books next to me for another video that I'm going to film. As well, I was reading The Honey Month. The story from this morning was the most story-like story with an actual plot, which I quite liked. The others, like I said, are more poetry, even if some of them are almost stories. And I am enjoying the vibes of that, but I am also glad that we got a story with a little bit more substance to it. So I'll be interested to see if we get more substance going forward or less. I don't know. I'm enjoying reading one of these a day, but as well, it's not really changing my life in any way. As well, oh, the other things I'm supposed to be reading, haven't read any more of Januaries. Maybe I'll read a few stories on my run tomorrow. And then oh, it's under a big pile of books. Anyway, the summary is I haven't picked that up because Nona's taking over my life, which I should have known was going to happen, and I probably should have saved this as a reward, like to motivate me to finish OA. But I also, I got from the library, also under a big stack of books, the sequel to OA, and it talks about the first book being like tragic events, like the events at the beginning leading to more tragic events, and now I'm thinking it's not going to give me any kind of hopefulness like I was hoping, which is also not motivating me to read it, but I still want to read it for like just for the perspective that I think it's going to offer, but I also don't know that it's necessarily an enjoyable read for me. We will see. I think that that's everything, but I could be wrong. Hello, shall we do a very sweaty, very red, very cicada-y end to this vlog? I have been not very good at keeping up with this vlog, and I'm actually going to blame Nona because I just didn't want to stop reading it. So mostly I didn't. And so I finished it. Last night I finished it and I really loved it. But like I loved it, but I also can see that like I'm surprised that it has such a high average rating because in some ways, I don't know, like I loved it, but I almost think it's badly written in some ways, but maybe I don't think that's really what it is. I think that it's so irreverent. I think that's the word. Like it doesn't take itself seriously. So sometimes it's so ridiculous that it's almost annoying, but also I kind of love how annoying it's being. I don't know that I can explain Nona the Ninth. There's a lot of the story still that we're not getting a lot of explanation for. There's a lot of like things that are obviously going on with the other characters, but because you're only getting Nona's perspective of it, you don't really understand it, or like Nona doesn't understand it. But you as the reader can put a lot of it together yourself, but like not all of it. It's still kind of bizarre, but like the big scope of what you learn about the world in Nona is really amazing. And the final setup for Nona the Ninth, the final book, I guess she originally had plans for what happens in Nona the Ninth to be very short and then just get straight into Alecto. And I can't imagine that. I guess that's why Nona ended up being what it is. I don't know. It's such a strange experience. And I'm definitely looking forward to rereading that series. I don't know if I'm going to wait till Electo comes out or whether I might just reread it sometime anyway. I guess we'll see. Hopefully Electo will come out soon. Now that I have caught up with the series, maybe we'll get an announcement. In my heart, I feel like we were just waiting for me to catch up on the series, and now we'll get that final book announcement. Hopefully. I know it's been a long time coming, so we'll see. And I also wouldn't be surprised if she was struggling with writing it, because just the way that the series has progressed, it's like so different now than where it started, and I honestly don't even know where Electo is going to go, really. Who knows? Anyway, I have been reading other things. I think when I last updated you, firstly, I forgot to tell you that I listened to the audiobook of Sour Candy. Mainly I forgot to tell you because I don't have that much to say about it. I don't know if short horror stories are for me. And actually at the moment, I'm not feeling that great about short stories in general. I feel like maybe I've read too many recently. But like Sour Candy, it was kind of fine. It's about this guy who goes to the shop to buy some chocolate for his girlfriend. And then he runs into this child and his whole life kind of goes crazy from there. And I thought it was fine until right near the end there was like this one half sentence, like not even a full sentence really, that like talked about domestic abuse in a way that I felt like was really unaddressed in the rest of the story. And I was just really confused about why that was even included. If like, what was the point of it? I'm so confused about it. I actually, like, I heard it and then I continued on and nothing happened with it, and I thought, did I even hear that? And I went back in the audiobook, and it's just weird to me. I don't get it. Anyway, so I did finish that. It was fine, but not a favorite. I've also been listening to the Januaries short story anthology by Olivie Blake, and like, I'm enjoying it. I feel like all the short stories are really well written, but I also don't feel like any of them are going to stick with me. And again, I feel like that's because I'm reading too many of them. Like, I've been trying to spread it out and just like read one or two every run. But even then, I feel like it's too many short stories in a row, and I almost need to just read like one a month. I actually think maybe this January's anthology would have been better if I just read one a month and like lined up the seasons with what I was reading, because it's almost like that's how the book is designed to be read. So maybe I wasn't following the rules. But anyway, also I have the problem that it's going to return itself to the library soon, so I'm going to try and finish it off. But other audiobooks, there's some people coming. Who cares? Let's just try and not be bothered. I did finish off, what is it called? The Killing Moon. And I don't think it really changed my opinion of it. What is this notification? Nothing. Yeah, I don't really think it changed my opinion of it. If anything, it kind of confused me because something happened that I didn't think was going to happen in this book. And now I'm wondering what's going to happen in the second book in the duology. Because while there still are problems in the world, I feel like a lot of the themes were wrapped up in that first book. So I will continue that series. Like, I don't know that The Killing Moon was a favorite, but there's definitely a lot to appreciate about it. So I still liked it. Then, why am I still reading too many things? I did pick up another audiobook, The Silence Factory. To be honest, I'm contemplating DNFing it. I picked it up because I've read a couple of things by Bridget before. The Betrayals I loved. The Binding, I loved the first half of it and not the second half. The Silence Factory so far is not giving me the vibes I wanted at all. It's kind of about the wife of this man who found these spiders whose like webs you can make into this silk that will then create silence for anyone surrounded by it. But it also seems like the other side has some kind of weird effects. Oh, it's getting windy. To be honest, I'm enjoying that wind. It's just like a gentle breeze, lovely. So we've got this silk, and we're following kind of a past timeline when they were first discovering the spiders of this guy's wife and her connection with the people on the island, maybe, and her desperate want to like please her husband. And then we're also getting in the future this other guy who's like a salesman who's kind of fallen into helping promote this silk. He actually came there to try and help this guy's deaf daughter because he was like a hearing aid salesman, and the deaf daughter was the one I was the most interested in. But I kind of get the feeling that nothing's going to happen with that part of the story. And I'm just not getting any of the emotions. Like, the thing I loved about the betrayals and the first half of the binding was I was so like emotionally drawn in straight away, and I have no emotions about any of the characters in the Silence Factory. And there's no real mysteries being set up like there were in the other books by Bridget Collins that I loved. So I think I might DNF it, but I don't know. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I'm gonna decide. The only other thing that I've been reading, why am I reading so many things? Anyway, the only other thing I've been reading is Owe. I think I might have to put it aside for a bit because Nona kind of took over. And then also this upcoming week is when I'm finally getting my money from selling my house. And I'm like, that's like the culmination of 6 months of selling my house and stress and frustration, and kind of like the culmination of 2 years of this whole moving plan. So I don't think I'm in the mood to read like a contemporary tragedy. So I might have to put it aside for now. And then I'm still kind of questioning, should I come back to it? I kind of want to, but I kind of don't want to. I can't decide if there's value in me reading it or not. We'll see what I think. So honestly, Ding Dong just made me forget what I was going to say. Oh, I think I was going to say that I had forgotten where this vlog even started. I think it ended up being way longer than I planned. I know I was reading Malice at the beginning of it. So like this whole vlog has not really gone to plan. I think it's longer than I planned as well. I don't know that I've loved anything other than Nona. And I still kind of, like, I love Nona. I'm going to give it 5 stars. But I also wish I'd gotten more of certain things from it. I don't know. I love Nona for what it is, but it's so not what I expected at the same time. Anyway, that is going to be this reading vlog. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I've talked about in this video, even though I've forgotten what those were. Or let me know if you've been reading anything that you've loved lately. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.